Hey guys, what's going on? Pete Branscombe here. Just getting done a little workout, and I thought I'd do a quick live stream. Not going to take very long to do this. If anybody shows up, they show up. If they don't, watch it later. It's very important. Labor socialism, Zionism through labor socialism. So let's just look at an old soul. An old soul by the name of Karl Marx. Everybody has probably heard of Mr. Marx before. Everybody's heard of one Karl Marx, so we're going to talk about Karl Marx for a second. So Karl Marx, guys, was the son of Herschel and Henrietta Marx. Okay, he was born in Trier, Germany, on May 5th, 1818. Herschel Marx was a lawyer, and to escape anti-Semitism, decided to abandon his Jewish faith when Karl was a child. Although the majority of people living in Trier were Catholics, Marx decided to become a Protestant. He also changed his name from Herschel to Heinrich. Okay, after schooling in Trier for 1830 to 1835, Marx entered Bonn University to study law. At university, he spent much of his time socializing and running up large debts. His father was horrified when he discovered that Karl had been wounded in a duel. Heinrich Marx agreed to pay off his son's debts, but insisted that he move to the more sedate Berlin University. To move to Berlin resulted in a change in Marx, and for the next few years he worked hard at his studies. Marx came under the influence of one of his lecturers, Bruno Bauer, whose atheism and radical political opinions got him into trouble with the authorities. Bauer introduced Marx to the writings of G.W.F. Hegel, who had been the professor of philosophy at Berlin until his death in 19, and when I say 19, I mean 1831. Sorry, I'll read normal again. When I say normal, a voice that's not quite so distracting. So Marx was especially impressed by Hegel's theory that a thing or thought could not be separated from its opposite. For example, the slave could not exist without the master, and vice versa. Hegel argued that unity would eventually be achieved by the equalizing of all opposites. Everything has an equal and opposite reaction. If you might have heard that old adage. By means of the dialectic logical progression, I've talked about this before in my own videos. Sidetrack, back on topic. Logical progression of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Right? Thesis, antithesis, then synthesis. The order out of chaos. The Hegelian dialectic. Again, you have a thesis, you have an antithesis, and in the middle you get synergy. You have your left, you have your right paradigm, and together to smash the extreme on either side, and then you get a quagmire of centricism. Right? Equal and opposite reaction. So if you think there's an equal and opposite reaction to what is taking place in our society today, what could that look like? Continuing. So this was Hegel's theory of the evolving process of history, right? And history is an evolving process. And if you understand the process of it, then you can in turn manipulate it, right? A lot of people don't want to manipulate things, but when you know how a system operates and how it works, you then can manipulate you, but then you have to decide whether or not you are going to manipulate that system that you know, or you're going to carry on throughout the system how a person's supposed to, right? These people are not interested in doing that. These people are interested in knowing everything so that they can manipulate everything. Okay, continue. So, Heinrich Marx died in 1838. Marx now had to earn his own living, and he decided to become a university lecturer. After completing his doctoral thesis at the University of Jena, Marx hoped that his mentor, Bruno Bauer, would help him find a teaching post. However, in 1842, Bauer was dismissed as a result of his outspoken atheism and was unable to help. Marx now tried journalism, but his radical political views meant that most editors were unwilling to publish his articles. He moved to Cologne, where the city's liberal opposition movement was fairly strong. Known as the Cologne Circle, this liberal group had its own newspaper, the Rheinische Gazette. The newspaper published an article by Marx where he defended the freedom of the press. The group was impressed by the article, and in October 1842, Marx was appointed editor of the newspaper. In Cologne, Karl Marx met Moses Hess. Now, this is the important part, guys. Moses Hess, the introduction of one Moses Hess, a radical who called himself a socialist. Marx began attending socialist meetings that was organized by Hess. Members of the group told Marx of the sufferings being endured by the German working class and explained how they believed that only socialism could bring this to an end. Based on what he heard at these meetings, Marx decided to write an article on the poverty of the Mosel wine farmers. The article was also critical of the government, and soon after it was published in the Rheinische Gazette in January 1843, the newspaper was banned by the Prussian authorities. Warned that he might be arrested, Marx quickly married his girlfriend, Jenny von Westphalen, and moved to Paris, where he offered the post of editor of a new political journal, Franco-Germain Annals. Not annals, but annals, like chronicles. Among the contributors to the journal was his old mentor, Bruno Bauer, the Russian anarchist, Michael Buchanan, and the radical son of a wealthy German industrialist, Friedrich Engels. In Paris, Marx began mixing with members of the working class for the first time. Marx was shocked by their poverty, but impressed by their sense of comradeship. In an article that he wrote for the Franco-German Annals, Marx applied Hegel's dialectic theory to what he had observed in Paris. Marx, who now described himself as a communist, argued that the working class, the proletariat, would eventually be the emancipators of society. When published in February 1844, the journal was immediately banned in Germany. Marx also upset the owner of the journal, Arnold Rouge, who objected to his editor's attack on capitalism. Marx has now become a close friend of Friedrich Engels, the German industrialist, son of the German industrialist, who had just finished writing a book about the lives of the industrial workers in England. Engels shared Marx's views on capitalism, and after their first meeting, Engels wrote that there was virtually complete argument in all theoretical fields. Marx and Engels decided to work together. It was a good partnership, whereas Marx was at his best when dealing with difficult, abstract concepts. Engels had the ability to write for a mass audience. While working on their first article together, the Holy Family, the Prussian authorities, put pressure on the French government to expel Marx from the country. On January 25th of 1845, Marx received an order deporting him from France. Marx and Engels decided to move to Belgium, a country that permitted greater freedom of expression than any other European state. Marx went to live in Brussels, where there was a sizable community of political exiles, including the man who converted him to socialism, Moses Hess. Again, with the Moses Hess character. We'll get to him. Frederick Engels helped to financially support Marx and his family. Engels gave Marx the royalties of his recently published book, Condition of the Working Class in England, and arranged for other sympathizers to make donations. This enabled Marx the time to study and develop his economic and political theories. Marx spent his time trying to understand the workings of capitalist society, the factors governing the process of history, and how the proletariat helped bring about the socialist revolution. Unlike previous philosophers, Marx was not only interested in discovering the truth, as he was to write later. In the past, philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point is to change it. In July 1845, Marx and Engels visited England. They spent most of the time consulting books in Manchester Library. Marx also visited London, where he met the Chartist leader, George Julian Harney, and political exiles from Europe. When Karl Marx returned to Brussels, he concentrated on finishing his book, The German Ideology. In the book, Marx developed his materialist concept of history, a theory of history in which human activity, rather than thought, plays a crucial role. Marx was unable to find a publisher for the book, and like much of his work, was not published in his lifetime. In January 1846, Marx set up a Communist Correspondence Committee, CCC. The plan was to try to link together socialist leaders living in different parts of Europe. Influenced by Marx's ideas, socialists in England held a conference in London where they formed a new organization called the Communist League. Marx formed a branch in Brussels and in December 1847 attended a meeting of the Communist League Central Committee in London. At the meeting, it was decided that aims of the organization was the overthrow of the bourgeoisie, the domination of the proletariat, and the abolition of the old bourgeoisie society based on class antagonisms, and the establishment of a new society without classes and without private property. When Marx returned to Brussels, he had concentrated on writing the Communist Manifesto, based on the first draft produced by Frederick Engels, called The Principles of Communism. Marx finished the 12,000-word pamphlet in 6 weeks. Unlike most of Marx's works, it was an accessible amount of communist ideology. Written for a mass audience, the Communist Manifesto summarized the forthcoming revolution and the nature of the communist society that would be established by the proletariat. The Communist Manifesto was published in February 1848. The following month, the government expelled Marx from Belgium. Marx and Engels visited Paris before moving to Cologne, where they founded a radical newspaper, New Rheinische Gazette. The men hoped to use the newspaper to encourage the revolutionary and atmosphere that they had witnessed in Paris. After examples of police brutality in Cologne, Marx helped establish a committee of public safety to protect the people against the power of the authorities. New Rheinische Gazette continued to publish reports of revolutionary activity all over Europe, including the Democrats' seizure of power in Austria and the decision of the emperor to flee the country. Okay. There's a bit more here on Marx, but I'm not going to read the rest of the stuff. I want to get on about Ken Kaz, Richard of America. Good to see you. They're nearly, yeah, it's true. They are nearly complete. Guys, I'm sorry, but just give me 1 second and I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that, guys. Someone wasn't feeling very good upstairs, so I have to go check things out. See what was up. So, let's just right quick here. Just want to see if there's anybody who's already Camo. You know what, Camo? I was thinking about you the other day. But I'm wondering how you're making out. So I was just going through a little bit about Ken Kaz, Rich of America, Camo. I was just reading there a little bit about one Karl Marx. See, I've known about this. Well, I think most of the guys have been watching this. You're up on this information a little bit, but this website here particularly, I've seen for a little while, and it's been very, very enlightening. And we were just talking about Karl Marx, and the title of the video is called Labor Socialism. Okay? So, Karl Marx, he was heavily influenced by one Moses Hess. So who was Moses Hess? Moses Mordecai Levy. Yeah, there's a name. So right here we're going to talk about Moses Hess. Now, is that Moses Mordecai Levy? Is that a different name? There's the other guy. There's the guy that what was he? Herschel. He was around the Balfour Agreement. He had the kind of hair kind of going back with the great big beard. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Karl Marx, his actual name. So, did I get that wrong? What did I say? Oh, it doesn't matter. You know what you're talking about. I get myself all screwed up. So, Moses Hess. Okay. Moses Hess. All right. So, Moses Hess was a Jewish philosopher and a socialist. And I'll get back into character here because it's a little more entertaining. How's everybody doing? Moses Hess was a Jewish philosopher and socialist, and one of the founders of labor Zionism. Hess was born on June 21st, 1812, in Bonn, to an Orthodox Jewish family. He received a traditional Jewish education, but as an autodidact, learned German and French as a means to secular learning. Initially, Hess was a utopian socialist, but following his acquaintance with Karl Marx, he moved toward a more scientific, determinist understanding. Hess contributed toward Marx's Communist Manifesto, written in 1848. In particular, the term religion as the opium of the masses. Okay, so that's what everybody has heard that saying. Religion is the opium of the masses. Well, they have their own religion, right? They have their own religion. Okay? So they know that. They know the order of operation. They know how these things work. And so they reverse engineer them. Right? That's why these guys know so many steps ahead, right? Because they've reversed engineered these situations, right? And they can see ahead. That's why when, as we start to get onto them, they have to start ramping things up, right? Because they have to operate under a certain guideline, under the process of progression, right? Logical progression. They can't just, ham-fist it, right from start to finish. But now they're getting to that point where they're starting to. It's like I was thinking of this example, like something that I would do in school. But like a kid, you had a project that you were to do, and you procrastinated, and you started working on it here and there. You worked on a little bit, even if you didn't procrastinate. Anyways, you weren't done in time, right? You're getting to the deadline. All right, you're at class, you're still trying to finish it, right? Well, that's what they're like. They're like trying to finish their paper, right? And the teacher, she's like coming from her desk, like her heels clicking, and you're like, no, I'm not. Right? And she takes it from you, and you're still writing. Well, that's what they're trying to do, right? As we're getting on to them, they're trying to wrap this all up. But where we're at is still part of the whole transitional period, right? The order out of chaos, the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, right? We're kind of coming into this synthesis stage, okay? Well, that's the end result. Okay, you got thesis, you got antithesis, right? Antithesis is going on right now, right? The complete opposite to what should be taking place in the world is taking place, right? Up is down, down is up, right? Good is evil, evil is good. Antithesis is taking place, right? So the equal and opposite reaction to thesis is antithesis, and equal and opposite reaction to antithesis, right? It has to swing back the other way. So it either has to swing back totally in the other direction, right? Or they have to find some sort of middle ground, right? And that is the goal. They don't want somebody so far on the right. They don't want somebody so far on the left, right? Still in chaos mode. Yes. Yeah, and the chaos really truly hasn't broke, right? Or to what end does the chaos break? That's what we're all kind of watching and waiting for, right? Lots more to come, right? You might as well prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Hope for the best so you don't, you know, drive yourself crazy and, just live in complete depression, right? And, because you have to strive forward, right? We have to continue on, right? We know that worse is coming. So as the worse begins to creep up closer and closer, we have to get stronger and stronger. It's the only thing for us to do, because if we keep continuing to get weaker, then we'll just, curl up in a corner somewheres and we'll die. We won't make it through. We have to continue to get stronger, right? And the more retarded that they get, I mean, it makes it the more obvious for our side, right? But again, even when we start talking about that we're getting on their same paradigm, right? Their same objective. It all ends up coming to the end result, okay? And we'll get to that, okay? So Hess was born in 1812, June 21st. Okay. Initially, Hess was a utopian socialist, but followed his acquaintance with Karl Marx, moved towards a more scientific, determinist understanding. Hess contributed towards Marxist Communist Manifesto, written in 1848, in particular the term religion as the opiate of the masses. Following the unification of Italy, the rise of nationalism in that country, and the emergence of German anti-Semitism, Hess returned to his Jewish roots, right? Because remember, originally, right, Marx escaped his Jewish roots and turned Protestant when there was anti-Semitism happening where he was from, right? But then they started creeping back to their Jewish roots, right? And what was the Jewish roots? His booklet, Rome and Jerusalem. Well, that's the last national question. That's a pretty interesting question right there that you got to ask. Why would he name his booklet Rome and Jerusalem? Who is Rome? Right? Who is Rome? Right? Rome and Jerusalem. I mean, didn't that happen in 70 AD? Isn't that ancient history? The last national question, written in 1862, is evidence of this change. However, his proposed Jewish state was to be socialist in nature. Hess died in Paris on April 6, 1875, although he was buried at his request in the Jewish cemetery in Cologne. His remains were transferred to Israel in 1961, where they were buried in the Kinneret Cemetery alongside other socialist Zionists such as Nahum Sirkin, Bier Borshov, and Beryl Katznelson. Katznelson. So you hear that? Socialist Zionist. So wait, what is this? What is social Zionists, right? I mean, we thought we were talking about communism, right? When you talk about socialism, and you thought about Zionism as being more like these kind of neocon Republicans and stuff, right? So what's going on? What's going on with this combination, this synthesis between socialism and Zionism? Let's look at what labor Zionism is. Okay? So, these are the worst. Socialist labor Zionism strove to achieve Jewish national and social redemption by fusing Zionism with socialism. You see that? Zionism with socialism. There's your left-right paradigm, guys. On the right, you have your extreme religious views, Christianity, Islam. On the left, you have your far atheist views, right? Nihilism, atheism, destroyers of civilization, right? Transgenderism, all the alphabet soup people, right? So fusing Zionism with socialism. Its founder was Nachman Sirkin, who promulgated this view shortly before the Third Zionist Congress in 1899. The Third Zionist Congress in 1899. And people wonder, how could Albert Pike and Mazzini have letters where they talked about Nazism and communism? Right? How did they have a letter in 1860 something that was talking about communism and Nazism when they didn't even exist? Well, look, they already had by 1899 the Third Zionist Congress. Some call it Marxism, I call it Judaism. Hey, good to see some of the old crew coming in here. I haven't seen you guys in a while, but I haven't been streaming in a while. I've been pretty, not around. Been pretty busy. Not that I'm too busy for you guys, but just busy to the point where I don't got the mind to come on and do a video. This year's very last minute for me to do. But I figured I could do it quick, and I'm already at 30 minutes. So let's just keep on going here. So its founder. So its philosophy was based on the assumption that the problem of diaspora Jewry would remain unsolved even after the socialist revolution, and that the solution to the anomaly of the Jewish existence was the emigration of Jews to and their concentration in a territorial base. Dov Ber Borshov, a prominent advocate of socialist Zionism, argued that the development of capitalism would inevitably prompt Jews to immigrate to Palestine, and that only there could the economic structure of the Jewish people be reconstituted as a base for the class struggle of the Jewish proletariat. Zionism, he asserted, is a historic economic necessity for the Jewish people, and the historic role of spearheading the Jewish national liberation process is reserved for the Jewish proletariat. Disagreements about the conceptual and philosophical foundations of socialist Zionism, the methods to use in achieving it in Palestine, and relations with socialist organizations and parties in other countries, led to the formation of many and sundry socialist Zionist parties. Socialist Zionist parties, okay? So that's why when you see down in the States, and you see even here in Canada, whenever they go party to party and you see the differences and how they're at each other's throats, supposedly WWE style, right? They always agree on one thing, right? Unless it's one far left or one far right, because they'll end up having this on either side, where they'll have somebody turn up that's far right, nationalist, or far left extremist, right? And it's always an anti-Semitic trope. So everybody's like, oh, don't go that far right, because you'll be like this guy. He's bad. Don't go this far left, because you'll be like this guy. He's radically bad. Okay? So that's what ends up happening. It doesn't matter what side you're on. If you go too far, right, against that, then you're done. Doesn't matter what side you're on. Okay? Now, okay. So, considering themselves more socialist, where was I at? Palestine in relations with other socialist organizations and parties in other countries led to the formation of many and sundry socialist Zionist parties. Again, so that's why they are always together. They all agree with our greatest ally, Israel. Okay? So, some of these entities eschewed Marxist terminology. They eschewed it. Eschewed. Back, I say. And refrained explicitly, terming themselves socialist. Do you ever wonder why conservatives don't really conserve and why they call themselves progressives? Huh? The Toronto Protocols, anybody? Right? Progressive conservative, the law of progression, right? The right slowly getting more and more to the center, right? With every new president, a new contract signed. Indeed. I think Trump helped to polarize. What was that? I think Trump helped to polarize that paradigm to the extreme. Indeed. I still think that the Donald Trumpkin-head prophecy is still a possibility. Because they're still going to try to get him, now that they're all running off the sinking ship like rats from the jab, and they're starting to come out against the jab. Well, who are they going to put it on? They're going to put it on old Donny Boy. They're going to put it on him if COVID, was the black plague of this century, right? They're going to put it on him because he didn't he promoted other things and not masking and not shutting down and stuff, right? So they would put it on him for that if that caused death. And now that he pushed the warp speed, they're going to put it on him for that, right? And that's all part. And he got the reward. He got the award from Israel, right? The friend of Israel. He's got the coin, right? Donald Trump is not done. His part to play is still not done. Okay? That you don't have to be a Trump guy or a MAGA guy or a Q guy to understand that has a part to play, right? It's just like you don't have to be an Alex Jones guy to understand that Alex Jones has a major part to play. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he is on the Illuminati card. Exactly. And if you're on the Illuminati card, you've got to be part of the world order of revolutionaries, right? Historic role of spearheading the tip of the spear. The social Zionist idea gave rise to the pioneering Oh, sorry. They refrained from terming themselves socialist. Can't read now. Others considering themselves more socialist and less Zionist swore membership in the Zionist organizations at various times. So, right, you've got this, right, they're, but secretly behind the scenes, like they're, but behind the scenes are, right? Now that's how you do it. You control the opposition. You control all of the opposition. That's how they did it, right? The socialist Zionist idea gave rise to many pioneering youth movements such as Hashomer Hatzer and Halutz. The leaders of socialist Zionist parties were among the most prominent in the pre-independence Palestine community and the state of Israel. David Ben-Gurion, Yitzhak Ben-Zivi, and Belen Kenneth Selson are but three examples. They undertook a number of measures aimed at establishing an autonomous Jewish presence in Palestine, such as employing only Jewish labor, encouraging the widespread use of Hebrew, and forming the first Jewish self-defense organization, Hashomer the Watchman. He also pardoned lots of noses before leaving office. Yeah, there's that guy that he gave him the flight right to that guy that sold United States secrets, and then they gave him a free flight to Israel, and when he touched down, they're all like, hey, na, 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 na. Right? Again, Moses Hess, communism, Marxism, okay, responsible for a movement that has killed millions and millions and millions around the world. Right? He's killed that many people, and they moved his remains to Israel. Again, they use the name Israel to claim to be God's people. Right? They use the name Israel to try to claim to be God's people, and therefore justifying every action that they take, right? And cursing anybody who questions them. Those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel shall be cursed. Right? They are the chosen ones. Though they rejected the Son of God. Don't you say that he is the Son of God. God has no son. We need no Savior but ourselves. Right? Another important labor Zionist, and the first actually to reside in Palestine, was Aaron David Gordon. Gordon believed that only by physical labor and by returning to the land could the Jewish people achieve national salvation in Palestine. Gordon became a folk hero in the early Zionists by coming to Palestine in 1905 at a relatively advanced age, 47, and assiduously working the land. He and his political party, Hopal Hatzael, the Young Worker, were a major force behind the movement to collectivize Jewish settlements in Palestine. The first kibbutz was begun by Gordon and his followers at Degania in eastern Galilee. Before Gordon's arrival, the major theorists of labor Zionism had never set foot in Palestine. The others came in the second Aliyah. Social Zionism is the progenitor of most of Israel's settlement movements and the Israel Labor Party. The source is Labor Zionism from the U.S. Library of Congress. And this here is from none other than the Jewish Virtual Library. So this is all legit stuff. They're not, there's no need for them to embellish any of this, right? Obviously, some stuff is getting left out of the equation, but you can see what all this is about, right? Because what did it say? Strove to achieve national and social redemption by fusing Zionism with socialism. Its founder, right? So this is all eventually about bringing them back to the land. But again, who are these people that want to come back to the land? I mean, there's nothing in this that talks about Abraham or Moses or anything like that. It's just they decided that it's their birthright to have this land. So what does communism and socialism, Zionism and all this stuff have to do with the rest of the world, and why does it have to happen in the rest of the world? Why? Because Israel is being made to be a burdensome stone to the world, where everybody is thinking, what do we do about the Jerusalem situation? What do we do about the Israel-Palestine situation? Right? On one hand, you have people that have ancient claim to this land, supposedly given to them by God. And then others, you have these people that are currently living here that have been here for hundreds of years and 1,000 years, even in some cases, probably, right? And everybody thinks that they have claim to that land. But that's God's land. And He's going to decide who lives there. Okay? And just because you say you're Israel doesn't mean that you're actually of Israel. Just because you say that you're of God doesn't necessarily mean you are of God. There are deceivers, right? There are deceivers out there. Wolves in sheep's clothing. But I think most of the wolves are fairly obvious, because there's certain things that they can't say. There's certain language that they have to use. And I think most of us, and anybody, if you're new to watching this or anything like that, normally I got a shirt on, sorry. But most of us were used to the language on one side or the other, or if not both sides. At some point in our life, we probably spent a little time maybe a little bit too liberal, or maybe a little bit on the conservative side, or maybe we were really far left and then we went really far right, and just been struggling to find your way, right? And it always ends up being where you feel left out of both sides. Why is that? Because both sides are just a piece of a greater puzzle, right? They're just a cog that's part of a bigger system of cogs, right, in a giant machine, right? It's just something to separate populations. You can have it from a continental level, down to a country level, down to provincial level, state level, town level, right? City level, right? County level, right? You can have, different jobs that are like that. You can have there's all kinds of different things where you constantly have a thesis and antithesis, right? And that's what they run on. It's a tried and true spell that they always cast, and that's why they use symbols. That's why they use, ancient rites and rituals. Watch, that's why all that stuff carries on through, right? Because they are carrying out a very ancient plan, right? And the banner, right? They carry the banner of Remphan, right? The star of Moloch, right? Saying rape and murder of so-called goy is permissible. Yes, in the Talmud, right? Everything ends up going back to the Talmud. Speaking of labor socialism, I mean, when you look at the Truth and Patriot movement, what do they end up going to? They always end up appealing to who? They always end up appealing to friggin' Martin Luther King Jr., right? And what was he? Oh, he had a good message. Yeah, well, it seemed like all he wanted to do was have orgies with white prostitutes, right? Didn't seem like Martin Luther King was that good of a guy. In fact, I know he didn't believe the gospel. I know he didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. I know that he didn't believe that he was born of a virgin. I know that he didn't believe in the resurrection. What does he push? He believes that we all have the potential to do good and do bad. And if we all just love one another, we can climb over that mountain together. Right? I've seen the mountaintop. I've been there. I've seen it. And I might not get there with you, but one day our children, their children. So for the Mio-G knew that we teach about them, they would kill us openly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. It's like these people, like, they have to lie right to your face, but because, like, you can't accept that someone would lie straight to your face that's trying to murder you, right? You can't, that doesn't sit right in our heads. But for them, they are programmed by years of hatred and brainwashing to carry this out. So, I do feel bad for a lot of these people because they are set out as vessels of wrath for destruction. Now found Ustream. David FL, good to see ya. Yes, I was over on East Coast there for a little bit and listened to them while I was doing some weights, and then I had to get this video in because I just had to get this information out. I had to read it. It's from the Jewish Virtual Library, guys. So I ain't gonna carry on for too long. It's 11:37. Tomorrow's Friday. If I get an opportunity, I'd like to come back this weekend and talk a little bit more about this stuff, because this is not about being anti-Jewish, and none of that. All of this stuff is always division, right? It's always division. And again, whenever you play with the whole Jewish question and the whole Israel thing, what they're trying to do is get you to turn against God and to say, "Oh, I hate Israel," or "You hate God's people, so you're not one of God's people," right? Like, it's this whole lawyer script where they get you to deny things, confirm things, say things that you don't want to say. Like, it's manipulation to, again, such an extreme that you can't believe the depth of how far these people are willing to go, how psychotic these people are. But these plans are so old and bred into them that they are insane. Not all of them, right? But a lot of them, right? A lot of them. And their work, and they're everywheres, right? When God destroys the Antichrist and
his armies in the end of days. It really doesn't talk about Jews. It doesn't really talk about Christians. It doesn't talk about Satanists or anything like that. It talks about those that have taken the mark of the beast, those that have worshipped the image of the beast and have taken his mark and have it on their right hand and their forehead. The beast who is given his power and his seat of authority by the dragon, who is that serpent of old, Satan, the devil. Right? Jesus Christ returns, casts the false prophet, who is the promulgator of the Antichrist, right? His preacher, right? His prophet. They toss him, the Antichrist, into the lake of fire. Satan gets bound for 1,000 years. Christ reigns and brings the nations underneath his authorship, whatever, for 1,000 years. Okay? But it doesn't mention all of the buzzwords that we're used to hearing. I'm just anti-evil. Yes. Right? Oh, bummer is the... That's a really a good possibility. That's a really good possibility. I don't know for sure, but he's definitely an end times player, I'd say, and he's still got more time to come back on the scene, right? For sure. I think there's a few of those guys out there that are key end times players. But anyways, I'm just gonna end up saying the same thing over and over again for another 2 hours if I keep going, because all I planned to do was talk about this quick little thing. I wanted to keep it short. Glad to see guys back in action in the chat. Hope you all are doing well. Again, just look at the information and then look at how you view the whole situation of the way things are transpiring, and you see the different sides, and then you see who's on these different sides, right? And then you see how these different sides are also connected in different ways, right? Like, for example, with like influencers and stuff, right? Like, say, like my very first video was about Alex Jones and Joe Rogan. The two of them had two basically different audiences, and now they've managed to combine their audiences, okay? And other guys that maybe are a little more left than Joe, right, are kind of coming into the mix. And guys that are maybe a little more right than Alex are coming into the mix, and then they're all hanging in, right? And then there's a guy that's pretty far on the right that you think, and then he's hanging out with someone that's really on the quite a ways on the left, right, or quite a libertarian or something. So they all end up being together on it, right? And you notice how the whole thing is, right, where to remain calm and never to actually react and to actually do anything. Everything is to remain a joke in the black humor realm, right? As to keep the sanity cap on just for a little bit longer so that no one makes a stupid move, right? Because again, you have to allow things to play out, but you have to control the action also at the same time. You have to kind of move it and kind of direct it where it's going. So if you have people just losing it and chaos ensuing, then it's hard to then control the cascading events taking place thereafter, right? So our side is constantly, making sure keeping everybody, down and on an even keel, while the other side is trying to ramp everybody up, right? So, anyways, Jorson, Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro. Yeah, great examples, right? Great examples of guys that kind of cover a very large swath of of minds of young men, right? And even not so much women, mostly men, but you know what I'm saying? Like those guys, they cover a large swath and always get referenced. If there's anybody that's going to end up getting referenced by um, somebody that I would say is not necessarily into the deep analysis and research that a lot of people in this chat would be, but usually if someone is somewhat on to things, who do they say? Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, maybe, although I don't know why. Like, Steven Crowder spends most of his time dressing in drag, right? But now you got a guy like friggin' Justin Taint there, right? And everybody, he's all over the place. He was on Alex Jones back before Christmas. And I remember thinking that he was a guy that wasn't going to be very popular because I was just thinking he's too loud and too like manic in your face and in the camera kind of thing, right? And he's kind of pulled that back a little bit now that he's kind of come out and blown up. But originally he was almost like he was too much, and he is too much. Like Andrew Taint, right? He's not black, he's not white. He's kind of that stained color. No, I don't have anything against the guy other than he's a loudmouth. But he's not wrong, right? He's right in the sense that, yeah, if I was driving a Bugatti to work tomorrow, I'd probably be pretty pleased with myself, right? You know, if I was jet setting, I'd probably be pretty pleased. If I was wearing a Rolex, yeah, I'd probably be pretty puffed up, right? And he says that you're not happy because you're poor, and most people that are poor are not happy. Well, that's true because there's always things that are broken. You're always having to pay for things that you can't afford. There's always issues and problems that you're dealing with. But does that mean that you're not happy? No, I don't think it means that you're not happy. It just means that you deal with real stuff. Like when Andrew Tate, when he rolls up in the video, like the car door comes up, he steps out with the glasses on, gets the collar going, lighting on the car, walking, there's like money, bills falling, raining down on him. I drive a Bugatti because I do. You drive a hatchback because you try. There is no such thing as try. There's only do. As the great Yoda, Jedi Master, would say. I pimp girls out on OnlyFans. You work as a Maytag repairman. Right? Like Andrew Tate, oh, alpha male, kickboxer, super rich, super cars, man. Like you buy, like look, I'm Andrew Tate. I just need to draw a tattoo on my shoulder going down around my tit. Join the Hustlers University. Pay $50 a month to watch me with my shirt off, jingling supercar keys in front of you, smoking a cigar with glasses on inside. Right? Tell you how to be a man. Show you how to pimp girls out on OnlyFans to simps to pay money. That'll pay money to them. Right? So he's helping simps not be simps by getting them to create OnlyFans pages with chicks to prostitute themselves out to simps, other simps. That's a crazy protocol. Crazy protocol. That's just, he's a prosperity preacher, right? Like, yeah, no shit, Andrew. You know, if I had a few extra bucks in my wallet, if I had just had some cash, always, sticking out of my wallet every time I pull it out of my pants pocket. Oh, that's what a poor man does, is wears a wallet in his pants. Right? But every time I hold my wallet, I had seen a few bills kind of creeping out. Oh, bills. Falling all over the place. Right? Yeah, sure, I'd probably feel pretty good. Yeah, I probably would. You know what I mean? But like, I'm not willing to go and use trade in stocks and get involved in this whole realm of the stock market. Use all these different kind of business tactics, banker style techniques to get money. Right? The people that we're always complaining about, we're going to use their same techniques to get rich like they are, and not expect to turn into the same type of people. Right? Money over bitches, money over everything, right? Power, money, respect. The love of money is the root of all evil. Or the ever popular Lucifer's wings tats. Is that what he's got? Is that what they are? Yeah, whenever they got them on. Yeah. They asked Peter Stein what's to stop the Suj from Dong Anuda 1917. He couldn't answer. Yeah. Exactly. That's what they're trying to do by making class warfare, racial warfare, great again. Right? They want to make genocide great again. Anyways, let's just leave it at that, guys. Because you know what? We're not going to get stuck on the paradigm that we don't like those kind of people, right? I mean, shoot. My God revealed himself to Abraham of Eber, right? Showed himself to the Hebrew people, made them Israelites, separated them, gave them his laws, and then eventually threw them a seed royal from the royal bloodline that he promised to Abraham. That will be the promised child who his death, burial, and resurrection would constitute the marriage, the adoption of the seed from all over the world, right? The adoption of man of every color, tongue, heritage, whatever, right, will be welcome into that promise, by that promise that was given to Abram so many years ago, right? So it's not about one particular chosen people, right? It's not about that. It's not about one particular people. It's about his people, who is a very large group of people. It started out from, yes, one people, right? And then it grew into a whole lot of people, right? But there's a commonality in that, right? It's not Jesus Christ died for everybody. Not everybody will be saved, right? He wrote his laws on our conscience. This is why we are disgusted by their methods and works. Exactly. If you're not disgusted by these things, then you have a veil over your face. You have scales over your eyes, or at very worst possibility, your conscience has been seared with a hot iron. So the only thing that we can do in a world of evil, right, is be the equal and opposite reaction. Now, labor, socialism, Zionism, and this whole thing, what they're doing, again, they believe that they will bring in the synthesis, right? They will take away the extremes, the extreme behaviors, the extreme thoughts, the extreme everything, and man will come back to a balanced center together. Okay? But they believe that they're going to do it by their means, right? And their means have not been forthright and honest. Okay? But God says that the kingdom of heaven will be brought in without hands. Right? He doesn't need all of these things to be done behind the scenes, right? By sacred rites and hidden traditions, right? Occulted means, gnosis. That's not what he had in mind. But man, doing what is right in his own mind, right, will provoke God into responding, right? Because again, God will not destroy the earth as long as he has people on this earth. So as long as God has his people, and he knows who are his people, as long as they are on this earth, then the earth will continue to go. It's only when there is the threat of no flesh being saved alive that he will intervene, which is when the Antichrist comes and the mark of the beast is issued and those that refuse to take it are being killed, right? Because if God did not intervene, does not intervene at that point in time and send Christ back, then there would be no flesh left alive, because after God's people would be destroyed, then God would just destroy the entire world and there would be nothing left. Okay? That's what that means. Sodom and Gomorrah. God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because they couldn't even find 5 righteous among them. He would have done it for 5, but he couldn't find 5. He only could find Lot and his family. 4 of them. That's all he could find. 4. So, God is very long-suffering. Everybody in the chat, have yourselves a wonderful evening. Take care of yourselves, as in the days of Noah. So shall be the days of the coming of the Son of Men. People will be giving into marriage, eating and being merry, right? Just going on as life as usual, because that's what happens. They continue on as if nothing is happening. Noah toiled away for 100 years building the ark, and then all of a sudden those ark doors, they closed up, and then the waters prevailed them upon the earth. And they all drowned on that side of the flood. So, let's do a good little outro here. Camo, good to see you, buddy. Missed you, man. Richard America, good to see you, buddy. Haven't seen you in a while either. Good to hear from you, buddy. Gary Galuska, always a pleasure to have you in here. Richard FL, you're in for a second. Said hello. Glad to see you, buddy. Who else did we have? Sin City Captive. I seen you. I seen you in there. I seen those eyes. And anybody else? Anybody else? I didn't see anybody else. So, you guys have yourselves a wonderful night. Try to get back to yous. Had you slept and watched you. Try to get to yous this weekend or something. See what's going on. There's a lot. I got to do a lot of stuff this weekend, but we'll see what's happening. So, peace out, everybody. Take care.